and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It is the Wednesday show. I am your host, Ian Croll, and joining me for today's episode to talk all things Everton, we have Paul Wheelock. Paul, it's been a while since you've been on the pod. You are a very busy man now in your new role, but how are things? All good?
Yeah, all good, mate. Happy after Sunday. Brilliant way to go into the international break, obviously, and some good news today, which I know we're going to speak about. Yeah, so I'm all good, mate. Sorry I'm not in the office with you today, mate. I had to work from home, so that's why you're seeing our little box room here, mate, in the background.
No, yeah, all good. So, yeah, as Paul mentioned there, for those who usually do watch on YouTube, will see that we're not in the studio today. We're not live either. This is a pre-recorded show. We are doing this show remotely, and it was the only way of bringing you the episode today. But we are here, and that is the main thing. We have got some big breaking news to share and discuss, and that breaking news is that Everton centre-back James Tarkowski, who had set to become a free agent in the summer, has signed a new 2.5-year contract with Everton. I mean, we all know that Tarkowski, he's been a key member of the side, Paul, since joining from Burnley on a free transfer in the summer of 2022. And obviously this season he's already been an ever-present again. So just your initial reaction, really, has it come a bit... I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise because we know his contract was up, so we're expecting maybe a couple of announcements, more announcements over the next couple of weeks with players, hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, Tarkowski, one of the first.
Yeah, I'm glad about it. You know, he's been an excellent free transfer for Everton. You only have to see his reliability and kind of like the numbers you were talking there. He's been an ever-present this season. He would have been an ever-present last season as well if he hadn't picked up that injury late on in the campaign. And I know this season, Michael Keane's, how revitalised he's been. He kind of continued on the kind of form he had at the back end of last season. We've got Jared Branthwaite to come back. Jake O'Brien is probably a long-term solution there. But to me, Tarkowski is still one of the first names on the team sheet. I think he is a good leader. I think his numbers, if you look in terms of the appearances and the numbers you look at, like his average rating and the things he's doing, like kind of like those underlying numbers, the blocks he makes, the interceptions, everything you kind of see online and read about him. Yeah, I'm pleased with him. I think it's been an excellent piece of business from Everton getting him in on a free transfer. And we only had to see last summer, didn't we, with the amount of players who were out of contract, some who we allowed to go, others that we had to negotiate with. We don't want to be in that position again in the summer because there'll still be transfer business to do. So, yeah, made up. We've got the first, first of many, hopefully, or first of at least 3 or 4 contracts to be done there, all sorted.
I mean, we can briefly talk about Tarkowski's career and look back on it. And there was obviously one pivotal moment in that, which we, you know, it's well worth speaking about. And we'll come on to that. But are you surprised, Paul, at how well his career has gone? He's played a huge role since coming in, you know, pivotal almost, and obviously being captain as well, while Seamus Coleman hasn't played. So any surprise with how well he's gone? No, just really for the fact that he's come from a team in Burnley who've obviously up and down, yo-yoing, struggling with relegation as well. Now I know Everton have been in that ballpark as well, but you know, he has been a mainstay in that Everton team.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Now he was obviously a big part of that Burnley team that did go up and down the teams, but towards the back end of Dyche's reign, I think we finished 7th, didn't they, and gone into Europe. And I know Chris, our colleague, has picked up some of the quotes he said after signing his contract today, and he's talked about trying to get into Europe with Everton again. He's just a really solid Premier League performer. You know, we shouldn't forget that there has been times where there's been drops in form, and you know there has been times where you wonder about his decision making, but I think he's just a really solid centre back and a good centre back for Everton. You know, longer term, will that partnership potentially be Branthwaite and O'Brien? Definitely, but as we've seen with Michael Keane this season, you know, you need 3 or 4, don't you? You need 3 or 4, and it's up to he's still very much one of the first choice too at the moment.
Well, that's it. I mean, Everton have already started to go through the centre-back partnerships and pairings with Branthwaite out injured for the last couple of weeks, and obviously Keane's maybe picked up a hip injury as well. We haven't had an update on that, but I think one of the things with regards to Tarkowski has been his consistency, hasn't it? I mean, you talk about his stats, but there is one stat that he previously had made 111 consecutive Premier League starts, and that was just too short of Wayne Bridges' record. I think that was what you or Matt put in your article this afternoon. Yeah. So you know, he was just short of breaking like a Premier League record. It's unheard of really to play that, you know, many consecutive games.
Absolutely, mate. And like, you know, You've obviously got to be a top player to play in the Premier League week in, week out, but there's not too many players like that, are there? You know, that you can completely rely on the vast majority of the time to be fit. And you look at that Everton defence, him and Pickford have been like the mainstays for them, haven't they? You know, they give us that kind of reliability, give us that strength at the back, because around him, Braithwaite's definitely had his injury problems, still got his injury problems. I think over the past season or so, Mikalenko's began to pick up a couple of knocks. We obviously know Seamus is towards the end of his career now. Nathan Patterson's had a lot of injury problems. Keane less so, but like we really have needed Tarkowski over these last few years through Lampard, Deitch, and now Moyes. And it shouldn't be forgotten that, like, you know, but like how reliable he is, how you know, he's always fit. And I think over his time at the club, the 3 and a bit years, he's been a really, really solid and consistent performer.
I mean, obviously, as the media duties after signing a contract, you know, he's been speaking to the club media. I mean, there's a load of quotes on our Liverpool Echo website. There's a load of quotes on YouTube. I will just pick one out, you know, that he said. Basically, he said, it's been a crazy few years with some big lows and some massive highs. We've managed to get through those tough times, and hopefully now we're on a more positive and exciting times ahead. I mean, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? You know, obviously we're looking ahead. Tarkowski's obviously going to be a part of that now. In what capacity he's going to play, we obviously don't know about that. But there has been some tough times with James Tarkowski in the team. But I guess he's just been, you know, one of the players who's been able to hold it all together to an extent.
Yeah, there's definitely been times probably on our podcast and definitely online where people have questioned whether his place was under threat. And I think I've definitely heard, and people said this year, if Braithwaite was fit, say for Man City, you know, in a week on Saturday's time, would Keane be above him in the pecking order? And there's probably an argument to suggest that, because Keane's been by and large excellent this season. But yeah, I wouldn't. I've said it a few times today already, because I really do believe it. I think I don't think you can downplay what a good performer he's been for Everton. And now it's still quite a young team, isn't it? It's quite a young team. We've like the vast majority of players we brought in this season on permanent deals are young players. Then there's kind of Dewsbury Hall at 26, obviously Grealish at the moment, but he's only a loan signing as it stands. And I think you do need those leaders in the dressing room. And even if he goes through tough times like we talked about again, and he was to lose his place in the team, he's still got a huge role to play behind the scenes, because Seamus may be the club captain, but Tarkowski for a long time has been that captain on the field, hasn't he? I don't know what you think about it, mate, but I still think there's plenty of football left for him to play at Everton. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, look, I've been vocal in the past. I've been one of Tarkowski's not biggest critic, but certainly he's always had like a bit of a slow start to a season, and then he's grew in to the campaign, and I think maybe we're seeing that now, and I don't know whether that's because he favours playing with Jared Braithwaite. Obviously, we know Michael Keane's had a fantastic start of the season, and he's outshone Tarkowski in a way, and we can come on to Tarkowski's poor start. I mean, like I say, I've vowed never to criticise him ever again after the Derby goal, which I still, you know, I want to go back and reminisce about it in just a sec. So I think sometimes when you play bad, and, you know, you can be certain fans or some fans, and I'm talking about myself and, you know, anyone who appears on the Royal Blue podcast, sometimes we can be too critical, a little bit overcritical, and, you know, players always seem to bounce back, and James Tarkowski is definitely one of them. My only concern with him is that we've already mentioned it, that after that 111 consecutive games, he'd suffered an injury, didn't he? And it was a hamstring injury, and I think it was in April this year. So at that age, when you suffer an injury like that, probably for one of the first times in your career, it's always how you can react and recover. Maybe at this moment in time, he's not 100% fit, and not having, you know, a Jared Braithwaite, you know, a mountain of a man next to him, is hampering him slightly. So look, he's signed a new 2-year deal. Is it deserved? I don't think there's any question about that. Moyes obviously wants to keep that consistency going, the continuity in the back line, and I mean, I think I'm right in saying Keane only signed a 1-year extension.
Yeah, in the summer, yeah.
So obviously, when you look at it like that, from that point of view, obviously you've got to have Braithwaite, who's on the 5-year deal. You've still got O'Brien, who I think Everton fans are hoping that's the partnership moving forward. But as has already been proved this season, that we're already going through our third and fourth choice centre-back, if that's what you want to call them. I mean, just on that, Paul, any concerns with Tarkowski's injuries moving forward? Like I say, I know Moyes likes, I don't want to put words in Moyes' mouth, but in the past I know Moyes has liked to, if players even are not 100%, he still likes them to play and, get through that 80, 90 minute barrier. Tarkowski is definitely one of those players who I don't think would have any hesitation in that, playing for the manager and running through brick walls for the manager. So any concerns with injuries?
No, I think you're right. I think sure the season before last in pre-season, the Dyche's kind of final season, he had a few issues, didn't he, as well? So that is interesting, despite like having that amazing run of games and how consistent he's been in terms of being able to be up for selection. There have been a couple of concerns, but he is 32 now, isn't he? It is to be expected, and can come back to it. That is why we need the 4 centre backs without question. Because like Keno went off, didn't he, on Sunday late on? So I don't know if we've had an update on him. I don't think so at the moment, but it didn't look too bad when he kind of came off. So we need the 4 there. I think the bigger concern for me, really, than maybe Tarkowski's fitness is probably Branthwaite's, because that he's young, but he's probably still growing into his frame. He's a huge lad, isn't he? It does happen to younger players, but kind of need him to have a really consistent run of form, because I think you touched on it earlier, mate, and I think you're spot on. I think he does bring Tarkowski on, because obviously without Tarkowski and Keane, we can't really play too high a line, can we? Because a solid and like committed defenders, or good defenders that they both are, they're not the quickest. So I do think that helps Tarkowski when Branthwaite plays. But no, I've not any major concerns about his injury record. And as you say, if there is something he may suffer with going forward, we should have the backup, all being well, with O'Brien and Branthwaite, because they have to be, the long-term future of Everton centre-backs.
Yeah, and obviously touching on Branthwaite as well, there's already been some debate if Branthwaite was to return in the next couple of weeks, which obviously we are hoping that he does. What does Moyes do? Does Branthwaite come in and immediately replace Keane? Which would be, I guess, a couple of weeks ago would be the obvious choice, because I think we've said it plenty of times in the past. You could have the best defender in the world, but if that defensive partnership, that unit, is not cohesive, or they don't play well together, then what's the point? So it's quite clear that you've got a Branthwaite and a Tarkowski, which is Everton's best centre-back partnership. But now you've got a Michael Keane, who's probably playing some of the best football of his career from an attacking point of view and a defensive point of view as well. But I think it's quite clear that Tarkowski is struggling. Again, we can't exactly pinpoint why that is. Fitness, is it because he's missing Branthwaite? So I guess the question is, what would you do? And never mind what Moyes would do. What would you actually do? Was a Branthwaite come in for Keane, or would you drop Tarkowski for a Branthwaite?
I think we need, first and foremost, he's got to be fully fit, because I think when he came back last season after his injury problems, it did take a little while, didn't it, for Branthwaite to get up to speed. But it's such a difficult position, isn't it? Because you can do that off the bench as a winger, or even a midfielder, definitely a forward. You can ease yourself back in, can't you? But as a centre back, you need to play from the start. Ideally, a fully fit Branthwaite has to start for me. And that is a huge call, because you probably say your captain has to start, and Tarkowski is the captain in name, isn't he now? Coleman may be the club captain, but Tarkowski's the one who's playing every week on the pitch. But Keane's performances have been excellent, and I agree with you. I think he has had a better season than Tarkowski. I thought on Sunday, I thought he was excellent again. I thought he was Everton's best defender. There is a logic to suggest maybe you bring Branthwaite back in on the left-hand side, maybe for Mykolenko, because I like Mykolenko. He's a good defender, but he definitely lacks going forward. I don't think he lacked willing on Sunday. Obviously his pass eventually led to the penalty, and I think he was involved in the winner, wasn't he? I think his pass was deflected over to the right-hand side. Oh, that is a difficult one. That's why David Moyes gets paid a lot more money than me. But I would say Branthwaite has to start. A fully fit Branthwaite has to start, because I just think he's a level above. At his very best, he's a level above both Tarkowski and Keane.
Yeah, I mean, there is options there, isn't it? I've heard a few people talking about the left back situation and Mikalenko, and maybe if he's not firing on all cylinders, then maybe you could take him out the firing line and put Branthwaite on the left hand side. I don't know about that one for me. I don't think there's any suggestion that Branthwaite's got a bad attitude or anything like that, but I think he would want to play centre back. You know, he signed this lucrative contract with the club. He obviously he's got England aspirations, and if he's going to play for Everton, that's where he wants to play. Listen, I'm sure he would do a job if David Moyes asked him to. I don't think there's any question about that. But he's got to come back in, hasn't he, when fully fit. As long as he is fully fit, it's just with who. The partnership is one of the most important things for me. And our colleague Conor O'Neill said on a podcast last week that it would be bang out of order to it if David Moyes was to drop Michael Keane. So I get that point of view. I think we all do. I think we know how well Michael Keane has been playing, but I just think if you look at it from the other side as well, the defensive partnership and the solidity that Branthwaite and Tarkowski brings. But it would be harsh on Michael Keane, and I think he would be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah,
rightly so if he was dropped, because effectively that's what would happen. But I mean, what are we now? Wednesday the 8th, as we talk about this, it's 10 days until City. I think my maths is right. So I still wouldn't be surprised if Tarkowski and Keane start, as long as they're both fit, and we gradually bring Jarrad Branthwaite back into the team. But it's an interesting dynamic, and obviously we have briefly mentioned O'Brien as well, who's obviously doing a job for us on the right. But there's another player who is probably desperate to force his way into that centre-back pair. And so I guess over the next 2 or 3 years, James Tarkowski's got 2 years, isn't it? 2-year extension. He's got a fight on his hands to keep his place, which is a competition for places. That's what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I say he's been an absolute stalwart, hasn't he? These last three seasons, 4 years, 4 seasons now. But you've got to look longer term. And again, I'm a big fan of his, and I've defended him on this podcast so far today. But I think it's fair to say that defensively, we haven't been quite at it this year, have we? We obviously had a number of, I think Pickford was maybe the second keeper behind Raya. Might be wrong, but definitely right up there with the most clean sheets. But we've only had a handful this season, haven't we? The Brighton game and Villa off the top of my head. And I think the Brighton game, if it wasn't for Pickford's brilliance from the penalty spot and a couple of other good saves, that wouldn't have been the case. So I do think, while it's been a really positive start to the season, I think there's definitely a few issues that need to be addressed. And again, it probably is Branthwaite, mate. I think he makes such a big decision. And if Tarkowski wasn't the captain, I don't think there'd be probably a decision to make. I think Keane, just because of Keane's level of performance, he would start. But because he's the captain, it might make it more difficult. But I think you're right. Yeah, I think going forward, as long as we keep all the Branthwaite and O'Brien gets the chance to go in the centre, there's definitely competition there.
And I think as well, in defence of Keane and Tarkowski, it's not like we've been leaking bags full of goals, is it? No. I mean, you could say, we have missed Branthwaite's presence, and maybe he can push the defence up a couple of extra yards when we're on the attack and stuff like that. But if we were conceding like 2, 3, 4 goals every now and again in the game, you'd be like, well, we are desperate for Branthwaite to come back. It's almost a compliment to Keane and Tarkowski that when we concede 1 goal, it's like the end of the world. It's like devastating. It's like how we conceded this particular goal. And I think sometimes when we do concede, it's glaringly obvious where the faults have been. But I think you could say that for most goals scored in football, you're always looking for someone to blame. How could you have stopped it and stuff like that? So I think you're probably right, really, in terms of Branthwaite. We've rushed them back maybe a couple of times over the past couple of years, and it hasn't enabled them to get back to full fitness. So now that the centre-back pairing, Tarkowski's form, has not been great, but it's still solid to an extent. We're not leaking goals. Let's not rush Branthwaite back in and ease himself back into the fold, really.
Yeah, and I don't want to just blame Tarkowski and Keane or the fullbacks, because I still think we're a bit open in midfield as well, aren't we? I think Palace are an excellent side, probably arguably the best team I've seen us play this so far, certainly live this season, but they seem to get behind us a lot, and not for the first time, not the only team to do that this season. And it's left Keane and Tarkowski exposed. I think the goals showed that, didn't they? Tarkowski was chasing shadows. They switched it wide, and Munoz scored. So, yeah. But I just think a fully fit Branthwaite alongside probably Tarkowski for me, and Pickford, probably Mikolenko left back, O'Brien right back. That's a solid base. We've seen that last season, didn't we, on the Deitch and then on the Moyes. I think you just need your best players on the field early. But Tarkowski's got a bit of a challenge on his hands, no doubt about it.
Okay, well, we did say we'd talk about it. Let's reminisce one last time. Obviously, it is about James Tarkowski, this podcast, and the fact that he has signed an extension to his Everton deal. How can we not do this podcast and not talk about his memorable equaliser in the Merseyside derby last season? I mean, where were you at the game for that, Paul?
Yeah, well, I think we spoke about it, the pod that me and you and Rob did, didn't we? I think we recorded it before or just around the time of the last Goodison game.
Right.
And yeah, I was there, mate. I was there. And I think on that podcast, I said it was probably one of the highlights of my Everton supporting career kind of thing. I know Liverpool fans will like take the mick a bit, don't be really, about like saying, oh, we're celebrating like a winner, but it was an incredible moment, wasn't it? Like Tarkowski, whatever he's done so far, unless he can be the Everton captain that ends this long wait for the trophy, or gets us into Europe, or does something a real mark of achievement. I don't know if he'll ever beat that moment, like last minute goal volley like that, last ever derby at Goodison. It was incredible. I was there that night, Mason. Yeah, an amazing night.
That's it. I mean, he could score 20 own goals. I mean, we don't want him to score 20 own goals, obviously, but he could do that, and he'd still be remembered as the player who managed to score that stoppage time equaliser. So it was a special moment, and obviously made it more special with the fact that it was the final season at Goodison Park, and the fact that if Liverpool had won that game, they would have had a better record against Everton at Goodison Park, which obviously added fuel to the fire in that game. It was the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison, last ever season at Goodison, and to score the goal the way he did, he's just he is a hero. I'm sure he'll be a hero to a lot of young Everton fans, and even at our age, you look back at that goal and that game and the atmosphere afterwards, and the scenes of the crowd and the fan with the corner flag. It's I know sometimes certain sections of the media criticise that sort of stuff and whatever, but it was fantastic scenes from our point of view, and I wouldn't mind seeing more scenes like that in the future, because it just means Everton are scoring last minute winners or winning trophies.
Yeah, it's one of those moments, isn't it? Like we us as Evertonians, we want to be jumping on the pitch after a trophy win or finishing the top 4 or 5 to get in the Champions League, but football's what you make of it, isn't it? And it was a genuinely, I was there moments kind of thing. And I know you still get shivers down the back of your spine when you see it, don't you, on YouTube or on Twitter. And all my lads still, whenever in the garden or at footy practice, if someone volleys, they're shouting Tarkowski and stuff like that. And like it's tough. It's tough being a Blue, or it has been anyway, hasn't it? Especially with our neighbours being the way they are at the moment. Well, not very much at the moment this past week, but in recent seasons. And it was our little moment to shine, wasn't it? Like, and yeah, he'll go down in legend only really for what he did there on the last derby at Goodison.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fingers crossed that it's not is only a contribution to an Everton goals tally, and he can get a couple more as well, because we know how dangerous he is from set pieces. So fingers crossed. Obviously, James Tarkowski has signed an extension with Everton. Just one final question, Paul, because I know you haven't been on for a while. I mean, was the last time you were on before the season started? I can't even...
Unless maybe that, I don't know, can't remember. It was definitely early this season anyway. It's not been for a while.
Well, how do you assess how Everton have done so far? I think it's obviously a natural question to ask moving into the international break. We've got a tough game, or two tough games coming up after that with City and Spurs. But I think from my point of view, the Crystal Palace game, or the result, it was huge, because we lose that game and we're 13th, and we win that game, which we have done, and we're up to 8th, and not far off Champions League spaces. Now, I'm not saying that's what we're challenging for, but the point is that the momentum, which kind of lost a little bit in that period where we didn't win a game for 4 games, I think it was, that's back now, and we can go into that City game feeling confident.
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly there. I think in half time it was flat, wasn't it? It was really flat. And to come back and fight back and then get the winner in the way it came was absolutely used, to use your phrase there. And I think, that the Wolves result, I don't want to go over too much over past ground, but it was a real kick in the teeth, wasn't it? On the Saturday we'd lost the derby. Sadly, no surprise there, losing the derby at Anfield. But the second half performance gave a bit of hope, and it basically continued where we'd left off before the last international break. But the Wolves defeat, and I know it's been mentioned on this podcast enough. I think Moyes made a mistake. David Moyes has not made many mistakes at all since he's came back here. But I wonder if he'd do it again, he'd probably make less changes. And that continued, didn't it, really? That continued into the West Ham game. I think it was probably a fair result in the end. But if we would have lost that game against Palace, and let's face it, at half time, or maybe an hour into the game, we could have been 3-0 down. I would have worried about let alone the momentum, kind of the mood in the fan base, because it would have felt like everyone would have been harking back to that Wolves game, basically saying you've derailed your own momentum here. But there were loads of positives to come from it, weren't there? Alcaraz off the bench, Inabunam off the bench, Beto, and Jai, Grealish being the hero. And it just gives us that feel-good factor. And I say we want to be looking up this season, don't we? And as you said, if we would have been 13th on 8 points, I don't think for a minute we'll get dragged into relegation problems this season. But you're only 4 points above the bottom three, aren't you? And that, whereas now, yeah, as you said, we're close to the Champions League places, and that's what we want to be. We want to come March this year. We want to be, if we're 8th, 9th, 10th kind of thing. We're not asking that much, are we? Where your Brighton and Brentfords have been in recent seasons, where they've got a half a chance of getting into the Conference League. That'd be progress for us this year, even if we didn't make Europe, which sounds like it's the aim from what David Moyes said and what James Tarkowski said today. But yeah, I think it's been a good start to the season. Apart from Leeds on the opening night, where we just didn't look ready. Don't think Moyes knew his best team then. And apart from the Wolves game, I've not had really too many complaints. Even the West Ham one at home, we were definitely, we could tell the momentum had been hit, but West Ham played quite well on the night. I'm okay with that. I can understand where we are as a team at the moment in a club, but we were poor on Sunday, but we won. And it was a great moment. I know we talked about the Tarkowski moment into the derby. Not quite like that level, was it? But it was a brilliant moment. I know you were in the South Stand. I'm in the West, but the scenes everywhere, but on the South Stand just looked amazing when the goal came in, because we're to the side of that, and it was a great moment.
No, it was the first time I think that everyone thought this is home, this is our ground now, and it only took the referee to book a couple of Crystal Palace players and David Moyes as well. Yeah. So plenty more of that, I think, moving forward. Yeah,
it's definitely a Goodison moment, that, wasn't it? When and Garner pushed Pino as well, didn't he? It needed that, though, didn't it? And that's Moyes knows that more than anyone. And it was just a little reminder, because it was flat the first half, wasn't it? We were slow, we just didn't pass the ball, there was no intensity, and then Alcaraz came on. Every credit to Alcaraz, he just changed the game for me with the ref and with Pino doing that moment. And then did feel once we got the penalty back, we could go on to win it. And it's been a good start. 11 out of 21 points is good, isn't it? Pretty happy with that. But yeah, as you rightly said, 2 very, very tough games to come back after the international break.
But we can go there full of confidence and hopefully have. I know Grealish can't play against City, but hopefully 1 or 2 players back from injury and fit and firing, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, City away, got nothing to lose, have we? It's a bit of a free hit now, isn't it? Because, as you say, if we would have lost or drew to Palace, it would have felt like we had to go and we really had to go in there and get something. But yeah, I don't mean to be defeatist, but if we can go there and get a point, we really made up with that.
Okay, well, we will call it a day. Just a final thought from me and a bit of a plug. So it's Wednesday, the 8th of October today, and this afternoon we had a special guest in the studio, and it was former Everton physio Mick Rathbone. He was in the studio, and he spoke to Everton writer Chris Beasley about his time at Everton and basically being hired and fired about David Moyes. So yeah, Mick was in the studio, and he basically just reveals about what it was like working at Everton under David Moyes. He was really good, to be fair, really good talker. He's got a book out as well, so obviously came on to plug the book. It's actually 3rd edition of his book. So that link to that book will be in the podcast description, and that podcast is going out on Friday. So there won't be a normal live show Friday, but there will be a show out, and it will be Chris's interview with Mick Rathbone. Any final thoughts, Paul, before we shoot off?
No, I've not listened to the podcast obviously because I'm working from home, but I know I've interviewed Mick Rathbone in the past myself, and he's a real character. And I've read his first 2 books, The Smell of Football, so I can imagine that's going to be a great show on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week. I've been joined by Paul Wheelock, I've been Ian Croll, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.